All right. Hey everyone, it's Chuck Gross here. I wanted to make a quick video about identifying plateaus in your weight loss and what to do about them. This topic and the answers were inspired by a Facebook post posted by Dr. Mike Israetel, whom I consider an awesome source of sports nutrition info, and that's kind of my go-to when I want to learn a little bit more and kind of further my own knowledge. All right, so let's get to it. Let's say you're chugging along in your fat loss journey and you think you're doing everything right, and you suddenly feel like you're stuck, or even worse, you're seeing weight gain. So what exactly do you do to get unstuck? Here's the thing. You aren't alone in facing road bumps like this. It happens to all of us. Heck, I've plateaued for weeks at a time and even seen weight gain when I know deep down that I was doing everything exactly right. So part of this is going to be the mental hurdle that you have to overcome. And that's where having someone else to give you an objective point of view as to what's going on is super helpful. While I didn't have a coach the entire time for my 200-pound fat loss, I do work with a coach off and on to help me guide through my own plateaus and my continued, quest for further improvement. So with mental plateaus like that, it's really just about keep doing what you're doing and putting the work in, and eventually the results will come and things will keep moving. It's part of the process to have ups and downs. Fat loss is not a straight line down like this. It's a gigantic zigzag and there's up and downs, and that's what you have to keep in mind. So one thing that I do want to mention is that when we first start tracking our calories, the number we usually go off is based on a calculator. And sorry. So that starting point is just that, a starting point. It's based off statistics. We do have to adjust based on what's really happening, as everyone's metabolism is different. We respond differently to certain calorie intakes, to certain combinations of macronutrients like protein, fat, carbs, and fiber, and that certainly can't be ignored. So with that said, if you think that you've plateaued, it's important to first establish if that really seems to be the case or if that's really just a perception. The first part of that is looking at the trends to see if you've really plateaued or if you're just really getting impatient. It's okay to be impatient. It's going to happen. But as long as you're not instantly reacting to that impatience by making drastic changes. And in the long term, making those drastic changes can actually derail you from your goals. So if you think you've plateaued, I'd ask, are you only relying on the scale to determine that? If so, I'd ask that you start using some body circumference measurements in addition to the scale. The combination of those two will really tell the full story of what's going on. I'd also ask, are you weighing in only once a week? If so, I'd recommend weighing in more than once per week, always at the same time after using the bathroom when you first wake up before you eat or drink anything. Then once you've done that, you can look at the average weight for a given week, or heck, even look at things month to month. So our weight does fluctuate up and down all the time. So it's possible that if you're just looking at a weigh-in once a week, that you're catching your weigh-in when those fluctuations that are natural are happening. So that can make it seem like progress is stalled. Looking at the averages will help you smooth out those curves and kind of show the actual trend of what's happening. Remember, like I mentioned, weight loss is an up and down process. And what you want with averages, what you want to look at is that the actual trend is going down, not what you actually weigh on a given day, as that's pretty much irrelevant. Once you look at these trends, if there's no real movement in, say, 2 to 4 weeks on the trend itself, you may be experiencing a plateau. However, before you start automatically looking to drop your calories, there might be some reasons why this is happening, why you think you've plateaued, and why that's happening. And they're well worth examining before you start reducing calories. So the primary and most likely reason that you may be experiencing a plateau is that there is inaccurate tracking. So if you're going to eyeball most of your calories and are estimating them rather than weighing them, this is likely the culprit. When this happens, you may want to reduce the number of estimated calories, reduce the number of your calories that are estimated, and instead try to be a little bit more strict. I don't think you have to do this all of the time, but if you're experiencing a plateau, it's a great time to kind of revisit how tighten up your diet a little bit and make sure you're measuring, because it's really easy to fall into the habit of estimating and sneaking in bites of things you're not counting, etc. I do this myself from time to time, taking bites of things you aren't tracking, etc. And this kind of creeps up subconsciously, and over a long enough timeline, you might not realize it, but you've accumulated hundreds of calories during the course of a day through these little bites you don't, take into account. I know that as a parent, this is especially hard, when your kids are kind of shoving food in your face and asking you to try it, telling you how good it is. But there are some other things you can do to kind of help that, as far as like reducing the number of meals in a day, changing your meal frequency to eliminate snacks, things like that. With 3 meals a day and no snacks, I find it easier to track things, as there are fewer chances to have these extra bites of food, and it's a little bit easier to kind of stay on course that way. The second reason, or second most likely reason for a plateau, is a cheat day or cheat meal. If a few days a week you go over on your calorie goal, or you have one meal or day where you are way over, this is often enough to either slow down, stop, or in fact reverse fat loss to be fat gain. I say that from experience, because there have been plenty of times where I was so strict during the week that kind of made me want to eat more on weekends, and it was just like an all-out binge fest. And it's very possible to erase your week's progress in one day on the weekend. I say that because I've been there, I've done it, and it wasn't until that I was able to bring my weekends into balance that I was able to actually keep moving beyond that point. So, I mean, I know it sucks to hear that, but it's the honest truth. You can erase your progress from 6 days a week in one bad day. It's possible, and I know it sucks, but it's true. So you don't really need a cheat day unless you're an incredibly lean figure athlete, like you're a competitive bodybuilder, you're trying to get to sub 10% body fat for men, sub 20% body fat for women, or you're an athlete. You really don't need a full-on cheat day or cheat meal. Just eat normal every day like you do, and if there are foods you kind of want to fit in, try to fit them in. And if they don't fit exactly into your calorie goal, be okay with that and move on. You don't need to make an event out of it. Once you start making it a day or something you look forward to, you place a bunch of emotional significance on that day or that event, and therefore it becomes more important to you, and it kind of locks you in this cycle that's not a healthy place to be. So I would ask that you avoid that, and especially don't call it a cheat meal or a cheat day. I'd much rather use the term like free meal, and go from there. So the third reason that you could be plateauing is that there is a change in your activity, and I don't mean formal exercise like going to the gym or doing cardio. I mean actual activities outside of that. This means parking farther away from your parking spot or from where your office or grocery store, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, getting up and walking around from your desk once an hour. Even minor things like when you're on the phone, you can stand up and move around a little bit rather than staying in a chair all the time. So these things do add up, but when you've been eating at a reduced number of calories for a long enough time, it's possible that your body is trying to conserve energy. Therefore, you may automatically stop doing these things or reducing the amount of activity you're getting from them, which is resulting in fewer calories being burned for energy, and therefore stalling your weight loss out. And the solution here isn't drop your calories further. The solution here is try to consciously increase your activity levels throughout the day. And like I said, this isn't formal activity. This little stuff really adds up to burn more energy than formal exercise does. Plus, because it's spread out over the course of a day, you don't have that hurdle of, I have to go and schedule this and plan this and spend a bunch of time doing only that, and it's boring, blah, blah, blah. Getting up once an hour and moving around, standing while you're on the phone, parking farther away, those things, they do add up, and they have a huge impact on how much energy you use. Excuse me. The fourth reason for a weight loss plateau would be hormonal water weight changes. What that means is, as a result of fluctuating hormones in your body, you store more water, and it causes the scale to jump up, and it's really hard to tell what's going on unless you're keeping track of those trends. So weight loss is all about managing your stress. That means everything in your life can be a stress. So outside of normal life, reducing your calories is a stress on your body. Exercise is a stress on your body. As a result of those, the impact of your sleep, is a stress on your body. Stress can cause your stress hormones to be elevated, which has the side effect of you feeling bloated and retaining water. And so you may actually still be losing fat, but the scale might not show that. It might not move for days, or it might go up. It's important to keep that in mind. And these things can also affect your sleep quality, which kind of in turn make everything else worse. And it's this horrible cycle to be locked in. Women have it even worse with their time of the month. So again, this all goes back to looking at trends and averages and measurements and looking at things outside of the context of a single day and looking at things over time. You can't just look at a single day, oh, the scale jumped up 10 pounds, I failed my diet, let's go back to eating what I used to eat. It doesn't work that way. You have to look at things on a long enough timeline. So lastly, this is the least likely cause of a plateau, but it still does happen. So it's something to be aware of. Your metabolism does adapt over time. It's not a huge amount, but if you've been eating at lower calories for a while, your metabolism can and will slow down, and your weight loss may be slower than anticipated. The good news is that this happening is only a partial effect, and this cannot prevent weight loss entirely. The bad news is that it might be a lowering of calories or increasing activity to compensate for that. And the lower your calories go, the more important food choices are going to become. Meaning, if you have a lower calorie goal to work with, you're going to need to prioritize high volume food, high fiber food, and high protein food to make you feel full with less energy, essentially. So there are a few more things you can kind of do to help counteract these stalls and plateaus. Work on actually sticking to your calorie goals across the entire week. I've said this before earlier, and I'll say it again. It's many people have problems with the weekends where they're so strict on the weekdays that they feel they need to cut loose on the weekends. And that's an all or nothing mentality. And that's very dangerous and counterproductive to fat loss. It is about finding the balance. Yes, this is work, but it's work being done for a specific reason. Weight loss requires hard work. It's simple, but it's hard work, and it's not easy. Again, we talked about the non-exercise activity. Consciously try to get up and move around and get some more activity, and that's not specifically scheduled exercise. Also, try to get plenty of sleep and manage your stressors through things like meditation, relaxation techniques. Take a bath, listen to soothing music, anything that will help you kind of de-stress. Managing that stress and getting sufficient sleep will make sure that you're not having unnecessary stress hormones that are causing water weight and bloating and making you not feel great. So the lack of sleep is important because lack of sleep increases your cravings, and it can result in your other stressors not being dealt with as quickly and sticking around longer, and it's a whole big avalanche of problems. And again, don't try to reduce your calories too drastically so that you're losing weight too quickly. If you've been faithfully hitting your calorie goals consistently for like 8 to 12 weeks without a break, it may be time to take a controlled break where you raise your calories for a week or two. I know that from personal experience, that can be difficult to do. I know that once I raised my calories, I found myself subconsciously slipping into the mentality of, oh, well, I'm taking a break. I can eat whatever I want. That's kind of a slippery slope too. So what I mean is a controlled break where it's basically the same habits and patterns and food choices you have, but just slightly higher calories as a break to kind of raise some hormone levels that kind of dip down while dieting. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you are experiencing what you believe to be a plateau with your weight loss and you want to work on some of the things that I've mentioned, please reach out to me and let's talk. I'd love to help you. All right, that's it for tonight, everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.